Okay, so we are going over lesson 6 over here now, and lesson 6 is going to be a lot of reviewing our fives. So we've already learned to skip count by 5, 5, 10, 15, 20, that kind of thing. Now we're putting this into action by just practicing a lot of multiplication. The way that I really like to think about multiplying my fives is I like to think that 5 means half of. So like with 2's, it means double, but with 5, it means half of a number. So for example, 5 times 4. If I took half of 4, that would be 2. And then I add a 0, and that gives me 20. The only reason that this method gets a bit dicey is because when it only really works on the even numbers, because once you get into an odd number, like the number 9, half of 9 is 4.5, so it's 45. But that's a little harder for kids to use this method with. So what I always say is go to the number before it, okay? If it's an odd number and you can't do half of it evenly, then you go to the number before it, which is an 8, right? 1 before 9 when you're counting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. The number before 9 is going to be this 8. So you do half of that number, which is 4, and then you put the 5 on the end. So whenever it's an odd number, then it's going to end in a 5. Whenever it is an even number, it will end in a 0. So that is my method for solving the fives. It's a little trickier, like I said, because you have to know your odds and your even numbers. But if you can count by 2's, you know that all of your even numbers are the numbers that you can count by 2. So any number that ends in 2, 4, 6, 8, or 0, those are all numbers. They end in any of these digits, then they are even numbers, okay? And if they don't, then all of the missing numbers in here are the odds. So it'll be the 1. In between here is missing the 3, okay? Because it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Right here would be 5, 6. Right here would be 7, 8. Right here would be 9, and 11, 10, 11. And then it would just keep going like that, okay? So, and if, as you can see, it also starts to repeat itself. The 1, okay, then it would be 13, and so forth. So if you know your 2's and you can count by 2's, then you know that any number that doesn't end in one of these digits will be your odd numbers. And if it's an odd number, then you say, okay, that's an odd number. That's not 2, 4, 6, 8, or 0. So I have to go to the number before it, which is 8, and get half of that. And since it's odd, I add my 5. Okay, and that's how I like to do the fives. It's a quick way to do them. You just think, okay, half of 8 is 4, put my 0. Half of 10 is 5, put my 0. Half of 3, oh, that's an odd number. It's not 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So because it's an odd number, what number comes before 3? It's 2. So half of 2 is 1, and then I add my 5 because it's an odd number. So if you think that way, then the fives become really easy. It's a little tricky to get your mind wrapped around it, but if you do that method, then you will know your fives in no time. Okay, over here it says the same thing it said last time with the 10's. It says you skip count and you color the boxes that you would say if you skip counted. So it's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and these are the only ones you're coloring in. The others you leave blank. Okay, then when we go to number 18, it says how many pennies or cents are the same as 2 nickels. So we have 2 nickels. How much is 1 nickel? Well, that's 5 cents, right? So if we're trying to find out how many are 2, we can just skip count by 5. So 5, 10. So it's 10 cents. Okay. Then we go to number 19, and it says 5 counted 4 times. So we already know what counted means. That means multiplication. So 5 counted 4 times. And this is an even number, so we just take half of it, which is 2, and add our 0. Okay, we're multiplying by 5, and anytime we multiply by 5, that means half of this number. So half of this one is 2, half of 4 is 2, and then we add our 0 because it's an even number. If it was an odd number, we would go to the number before it when we're counting, which is 3, and we would take half of that and add a 5. Okay. Next one, everyone put their hands on the table. If Ted counted 8 hands, how many fingers are on the table? So since they're asking us about fingers, okay, right away they say how many fingers are on the table, and we only have hands, we don't have fingers, then we have to figure out how many fingers are on one hand. So we know that's 5, okay, and then how many hands? 8 is what Ted counted. So we do 8 times 5, or 5 times 8. And that gives us half of 8. That's an even number, so we can just put the 4 and add the 0. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else that might be tricky. These are just reviews. This is what we learned the first chapter. These are, you skip count by 5 at the tops. The bottoms, you fill them in. 5 times 0, 5 times 1, 5 times 2. Okay, and this is skip counting nickels again, or just multiplying them. More nickels. On number 20, this one's when they give you any information in parentheses, that usually gives you what number you will be using. So this one says Lindsay read 5 pages of her book every day for a week. See, so it gives you the 5 pages, but then it says for a week. It doesn't give you, and then it says how many pages did she read. So for a week is, we have to know how many days are in a week so that we can find this answer, because we have 5 and we have to multiply by how many days, but we don't know. But over here it tells you 7 days is in a week. So if you didn't know that, then it's right there, and then you can just multiply. And remember, this is an odd number. It's not 2, 4, 6, 8. It's in between 6 and 8. So that's an odd number. So what comes before that when we're counting? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, so it's 6. So what's half of 6? It's 3. And then because it's odd, do we add a 0? No. Because it's odd, we add a 5. Because remember, 5s are always, they alternate ending in 0 and 5, 0 and 5, 0 and 5. So every time that something is a multiple of 5, it's always going to end in 5 or 0. When it's when the number that's being multiplied by 5 is odd, then it will end in a 5. When that number is even, it will end in a 0. Okay? This is some more review of the 2s, of the 0s, 1s, 10s, 5s, only what we've gone through, nothing else. Okay. So see, this is where many people could get confused, because over here it says skip count. It says at one time stamps cost 5 cents a piece. How many letters could be mailed for 35 cents? So we can skip count to find this, okay? Or we can try and do, okay, what number 5 times what will give us that 35? But it's better to skip count at this point. And we would skip count 5, 10, 15, and we would see how many times we had to count before we got to 35. But then over here, right after, okay, now it gives you a problem that says I called Amy and we talked for 25 minutes. The next day, Amy calls me and we talked for 58 minutes. For how many minutes did Amy and I talk in all? Okay, so this is an addition problem. Okay, this is an addition problem, and it came right after a multiplication problem. So just make sure you really focus and make sure you understand, read the question, make sure you understand if it's multiplication or if they're switching it up and just throwing in an addition problem in there, because they will do that from time to time. Okay. Everything else looks pretty similar to what we've been doing. There's some subtraction and addition here and some more word problems. Okay, so that's all I'm going to review for chapter 6. If you have any more questions, make sure to send me a message and I will respond. Thank you.